Morning, everyone. Mrs. Logan. I'll call the meeting to order. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bitter. Here. Mr. Comerford.
Here.
Dr. Steger.
Here.
Mrs. Weiss. Here. Mr. Balance.
Here. Please stand behind me and the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning. As we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that as a board, all 5 of us are elected to represent our entire community, which consists of approximately 5,800 students, 800 staff members, and over 35,000 community members. We use our mission and vision to guide us, and I'd like to start our meeting by revisiting these. Our mission is to create a culture of academic excellence through inclusive and innovative learning opportunities for the whole child. And our vision is to empower all learners to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. As we conduct our business this morning, I ask that the board, administration, and community do so in a respectful manner. Discussions are always healthy, and while we may not always agree, I can assure you that each and every one of us wants to ensure that we're doing what is best for our students, staff, and our community. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Logan?
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, the agenda is approved. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes from August 31st.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions from the board?
I have a quick question for Mrs. Logan. I was virtual on that meeting. Am I allowed to vote on this?
You are allowed to vote on the minutes.
Okay.
And I know we had discussion at a prior board meeting, whether if you attend a meeting, can you vote on those minutes? There's nothing that would take away that right. So,
Okay, thank you. Just want to double check.
Right.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
And Mr. Balance.
Aye, the minutes are approved. Moving on to public participation. This section is for non-agenda topics. If there is public participation for agenda topics, you will be asked to hold those comments until after the board introduces the topic with a motion and a second. And then we will allow the public to comment on agenda topics. Do we have any non-agenda topics for public participation?
I did not receive any requests for non-agenda items.
Mr. Long? I did not. Okay. Moving on to master facility update.
Good morning. I'll keep this brief. What I wanted to do was just highlight just some of the recent work that's been going on. And I know that we welcomed our junior high students back to the new building, and it was wonderful seeing so many faces of just the students and the teachers as they were introduced to their new space. And I can tell you just from an operations standpoint, things are going very well. Very similar though to EH Green and the Sims. After we open those up after construction, we're still doing work on our operational system. So from an HVAC perspective, things like that as we go through the commissioning process, and that will go on for about 4 to 5 months. So we keep telling our team that yes, we're in the new building, but our new building is not complete yet. And so you'll notice at the junior high, we continue with our site development. November is our target date for the bus lot to be open. We think we're going to actually get that sooner. But by all accounts, our timeline is early November to have that done. The other exciting thing happening on the junior high property when we talk about site development is the construction of our tennis courts. So that site work is complete in the back. And so the next step is just to begin the process of putting those courts in. And so once all that's kind of buttoned up, hopefully before winter, heading into the spring, our site should look pretty clean over there. We are in the final stretch too. I know sometimes with our transportation department, we forget that was a big project we undertook, but it was a very smooth process. But I did want to let you know that there are still a few outstanding items over there. I know the transportation's working around that we're still trying to navigate. I think today we actually have a change order related to that project with the change in how we're storing some of our chemicals on site. So I know that the transportation facility is ready for that piece to move forward. So we're looking forward to closing up that. And I know I'm working with Mallory to look at how do we do some type of ribbon cutting both there and the junior high as well. So we'll get those dates to you as we get a little bit closer. But other than that, I just really briefly wanted to highlight too, just opening from an operational standpoint. I know it's master facility plan, but it's facilities in general. Our transportation department has done a phenomenal job this year, transporting our students, getting everybody back. We've had obviously some challenges from EH Green to the junior high. We've mitigated those thanks to the team over at Green and the junior high with parking. Child nutrition, just highlight one area of that. We had the best day ever at Green, served over 500 lunches in one day. So participation is sky high at our buildings, which tells us our team's doing a phenomenal job, but the spaces we've created are inviting for our families to want to take and participate in food service. So thankful for everybody on our team and everything that they've done to get this school year started.
Mr. Lovell,
Yes.
is it safe to say that that soil issues are behind us?
That is not a safe assumption. So we did.
think that's going to be in our rearview mirror.
So we had a change directive, if you remember at the board, to go up to 350,000 for the soil in front of the building and on the east side of the site. There's one remaining piece I just got an email about this morning near the maintenance building that they have to mitigate. Our hope is that it still fits within that amount of that change directive, but that is the last remaining piece of soil on the junior high site that we have to navigate. And it's around some utilities. So they're trying to navigate the impact of that right now, but that was an email I received this morning that I haven't gotten a lot of more information on.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Another quick question. How's the natatorium?
Oh, great question. Yep. Yeah. So the natatorium, things are going really well. So this summer has been the summer of the pool, meaning that HTC kind of stepped off site in June to allow PSS, our pool contractor, to start building the shell of the pool. So if you were to go over there right now, the walls of the pool are built, the shell is built. They're starting to do infill around the pool. We had some mitigation around that from a drainage perspective that we wanted to take care of. But the goal then at the end of September is to start to bring the walls and the roof up over the course of the winter. So then come January-ish, we're starting to build out inside of the pool. So we have not hit any, knock on wood, haven't hit any issues with the construction of the pool at this point. We have a tiny bit of a delay, but that was more based on a change that we requested from the design of the bleachers, but it's not an overall schedule impact.
Okay, and then one more quick question to
Sure.
follow up at the high school. When do we expect parking to open up for students after all the construction's open? Since those are some questions I've been asking.
Yeah, so our target date remains December 1st to be able to get up the north loop.
Okay.
If you remember the infamous north and south loop that we have there. So the goal with the natatorium is to get the walls up, to get the roof on, and then to start creating that north loop. Once the north loop goes in, then we can remove the visitor parking and the handicap parking, and we can reorient everything up there and get rid of the ramp,
Okay.
which will free up some spaces down in the lot. And then contractors, we'll still have to accommodate contractor parking through this coming summer. So we'll ease up some of the parking come December, January, and then another kind of bucket of parking behind the stadium will then open up again after. So next school year is probably a likely time that will happen.
I have
Yes,
questions too.
sure.
The lockers at the junior high,
Yes.
everything's set with them. I know that there were some locks that we were supposed to receive. Are we gonna
Yeah.
receive those? And
Yeah, so so the backstory is on the lockers at the junior high. When we purchased the lockers, similar to Green, we decided to not purchase lockers with locks built into them for a lot of different reasons. The high school was the same way. So that required us to purchase locks. We purchased batch locks for the high school and for Green. But what happened with the junior high is we went with a different vendor, and the vendor sent the locks without the combinations in sequential order, which from a management standpoint is not good. And so we have been had to ship those back. And we're getting a new set of locks that are coming in to help with that. So I've been working closely with Ms. Shunk to get that.
Then just a general question, this could be something for today or for another, and I just want to put it out there on the radar. You know, we have these amazing new buildings, spacing issues. How are our classrooms? Are we completely filled? Do we have space? Like, how are you feeling on the new buildings, junior high school and Sims and even the high school as far as student numbers and ratios for
So
students?
back when the master facility plan was done, architects and construction and district know that when you build it, they will come. Your enrollment goes up when you open new buildings, and we've seen that. We've seen an increase in enrollment this year at EH Green being, well, we saw it last year, then an increased enrollment this year. We've seen an increased enrollment at Sims. We'll see the same thing after some time with the junior high. We have enough space right now for our students. A lot of what it comes down to is how we're allocating space within our buildings. From a green perspective, we built those extra rooms within our pods, our flex spaces. We do have to add some lockers and chairs at Green. But again, that was kind of in our plans that we knew we'd have to do if enrollment shot up. So what we do, what my team does is I work very closely with Mr. Lewis and Ms. Webner to understand the academic side, work with our building administrators to understand the space that we have available, and what we might need to do to support those spaces to accommodate everybody.
I just want to, speaking on the issue, I just want you to know that should you need resources to make sure that the students have the space that they need for those buildings, understanding that those increases could happen, I hope that you'll come to us and let us know that, so that we can accommodate that, or we can at least understand what the need is.
We appreciate
Provide
the
those
support.
resources.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I think it's an important point just to make sure the community doesn't hear these comments and think we're overwhelmingly out of, our predicted enrollment. We're sitting in the 5,800s. When we were working through this facility process, we built for a capacity of 6,100. So we're not, I can honestly speak from really Green on up, there are no capacity issues. I would say from Mr. Lovell's comments, it's how we allocate space and the number of students we put in a classroom that create some of our tension at the K-4 range. So also it just seems to like, we kind of chase the problem around, at one point in our lifetime, I'm looking over at Dr. James, because when I first came to the district, she was redistricting, and Montgomery was the big overwhelmed building. It was over, I think, 600. And we had just finished Mapledale, so we had to move some students to Mapledale. Then Mapledale became the new building and it was overwhelmed. So then we had to move. It seems like that Sims is now the building where it's like the hot building, it's brand new, it's looking good, and it's almost like the influx has happened there. So it almost does follow that moniker of if you build it, they will come, or if you renovate it, they will come. But that's why that enrollment study is so important, and we're looking at all of our information so that we can make good decisions going forward.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to have updates on that particular information. If our enrollment is up, or if one school has more students than another school, I just feel like I would like as a board member to have those types of updates as well, just to understand what that is.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Yep. Provide that.
I would just like to publicly thank the staff, the entire staff at the junior high for getting our school open. It was a monumental task, even in a new building, getting everything clean, getting everything taped in, our teachers getting everything set up to welcome students on the first day. So just publicly want to thank on behalf of the board, all the work that the entire team did to get our junior high school open.
Mr. Lovell, you deserve a lot of credit as well. That coordination doesn't happen without your leadership. I realized how important some of the decisions that you make are. Last night when I was working, I went to the junior high tennis match. I was watching the multiple tennis teams compete, and there were a lot of girls standing there. And I was like, why are you guys all standing here? Why aren't you playing? And they said, well, we have multiple teams and then we have open matches. And they said it really makes a difference to have that fifth court, because they were at Weller. at the park playing, and there was only 4 courts. And the coach was like, yeah, it does take a lot longer to get through a match just because we don't have that 5th court. So kudos to you for advocating for that, and kudos to the board for supplying that 100%. Look like we're getting close to laying that foundation at the junior high because it's level back there, so.
We are very excited about the start of year next year without opening a building. And I say that, so thankful for what the community gave us, but we're very excited to start the year next year without a new building.
Mr. Lovell, I'd also like to echo what Mr. Ballard said about the thank you to the staff at the junior high, everyone involved in your staff on opening it up. I did have one follow-up question. I know there's been some communication around the auditorium and the sight lines and the challenges with that. Do you have any update on the auditorium situation?
Yeah, so obviously we sent the communication out to let the community aware of kind of what's going on over there. We have been thrilled to be able to collaboratively work with SHP to solve this problem. So we have given them an opportunity to review what our consultant kind of discovered to figure out how they might attack the strategy of fixing the junior high. We received message back from them yesterday that they needed just a few more weeks to be able to get some mechanical engineers, things like that, that they obviously have to do due diligence on. So my hope is in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to come back with an update on what the scope of the work will be and the time frame around that.
Your level, just to be clear, that the work that SHP is doing to review what the consultant has recommended, Sycamore is not incurring the cost of them hiring mechanical engineers, correct?
So we, right now, what we are doing is we hired a third-party consultant to come in to review the concerns and issues that were in there. That was something that we did. What SHP is doing right now is on them to then discover the fix. And then from that path forward, where we'll obviously work with insurance companies to determine how that fix will be paid for and all the details around that.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that.
Correct.
Whatever they're doing right now, we are not incurring that.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
Yes.
Anything else from Mr. Lovell? Thank you for the update.
You're very welcome.
Moving on to the superintendent. Need a motion for the memorandum of understanding for OC number 243 perfect attendance consent.
So moved.
Second,
I'll just say unintended consequences sometimes when you get into the heat of bargaining, and sometimes you just miss things, and essentially the tentative agreement that was reached almost penalized the employees for perfect attendance in a way. So in conversation between OC leadership and our team and our attorney, we're recommending this minor change just so that they don't get penalized for perfect attendance.
Looking for his cover.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
aye.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye. Motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the school stops for 2023-24 school year.
So moved.
Typical beginning of the year approval. Normally, we would have this to you before the start of school, but the way that bus bid fell and route bid fell, and then when we had these finalized, we didn't have a meeting for 3 weeks. So it's not imperative that it's done before the school year. It's just imperative it's required by law that we do this and approve our bus stops. So thank you to Mr. Miller for he and his team getting this to us, and all the work that they do to create bus stops for our students.
Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye. Motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Planeters Group Sycamore High School tennis court renovations.
So moved.
Second.
So as part of our capital expenditures that we had discussed and approved back in the summer, part of that was $800,000 that was allocated towards a junior high tennis court cost, adding that fifth court as we discussed earlier, but also money allocated for the replacement of the tennis courts at the high school, which are past their lifespan. We invested some money the last few years to do some kind of temporary fixes on those courts, but they're at the point where we need to dig them up and relay the foundation of those. And so this request that's before you right now is just to engage with Kleiningers, who will be our support and putting that out to bid on that project. The money allocated ultimately towards that 24,000 does not include the design fees that will come eventually when we go and start to bid that.
This is funded from our capital improvement.
It is, yes. Yep. Yeah, we had 600,000-ish budgeted towards this project, and then 200 and something thousand budgeted toward the junior high project. And if you remember that junior high project, because we added the fifth court, there was actually a credit from when we had moved it from the west side of the property over to the east side to get that fifth court in there. So there's a spreadsheet somewhere showing how those numbers kind of worked out, but that's why we ended up going through the capital to pay for those.
Mrs. Logan.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger. Aye. Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the change order Sycamore High School renovation project GMP number 2.
So moved.
Second.
I do want to highlight that these change orders here, 83 and 84, represent requests changed from the building administration. This was after working within the building for a year for workflow from the standpoint of attendance. We added an attendance window, transaction window to the main hallway. What was happening was that there were what we would consider, they would consider workflow, we've considered security issues with how the doors have to be propped up with students going in and out of the office. So the transaction window allows for seamless communication with the student and attendant.
Any additional questions? Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Wise.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
And Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the change order Sycamore High School renovation project GMP number 6.
So moved.
Second.
And we're getting back $16,000. It's exciting.
Thank you.
We will take it.
Mrs. Logan, please call.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the change order transportation facility project.
So moved.
Questions? Logan.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the construction change directed transportation facility project.
So moved.
Second.
This is the one that I wanted to quickly highlight as well. When I talk about us not being able to use our third bay because we had to install a tank in the ground, this was a last minute add by our local municipality. And it created some supply chain issues because of when we were notified that we had to have this. It wasn't in the original spec. And so the tank is in the ground, but we're waiting a few more weeks for the systems that go with it. And so that's why where we're at right now with this request for $24,000.
Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Kleiningers Group District paving projects. Transportation. Practical. I need a motion for the approval of transportation and practical.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mrs. White.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. Now I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Kleiningers Group District paving projects.
So moved.
Second.
This is to reset our 5-year paving plan. So now that we have our buildings open, we've got through our master facility plan, we want them to come out and help us reorganize kind of our 5-year look ahead on what our paving strategy will be. So this is the first step for them to do that.
Your level, do you
Yes.
believe that we have more or less paving to do now with the new building?
So,
Or is this pretty much a wash?
I would probably, say it's a wash. And the reason I would say that is because, we have not done paving for the past 3 years because of the master facility plan. It didn't make sense for us to be doing paving specifically at the high school lot and other places. So we're going to have to play some catch up, in some of our areas. Now, granted, we do have mainly new services at the junior high, mainly new services at EH Green, so that's going to help out. But we really didn't add new services at the high school except for the bus lot. And in front of the stadium.
I do think it's important to point out, we were in really good shape when that decision was made not to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Montgomery had been replaced, Blue Ash had been replaced. I mean,
I'm just talking about from a net,
just from a
like
cycle
a net
standpoint.
perspective of like, do we have more asphalt or less asphalt now that we're
Definitely
having
have-
advantage of?
We definitely have more asphalt in the district. You know, we added a bus lot behind Green, so there's a lot more asphalt on that side of the property. The high school we added in front of the stadium, we added more depth to our asphalt for the bus lot at the high school.
We added a
trans-
bus lot.
And we added a bus lot of transportation. So the amount of asphalt we have now is significantly more than we had before. However, the immediate impact might not be as much because we don't have as much maintenance on that property right now. In the 5-year span, at the end of the 5 years, we might see some of that.
Yeah, I would be interested to sort of see what we think the projection will be in 5 years, how much more we're gonna have to allocate in our capital budget for that.
And that is exactly why we want Kleinger's to come out to help us look at that.
Thank you.
Very much. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Fallon.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Care Therapy.
Second.
Questions from the board?
I just have a quick question. Is this on-site for students with disabilities, or do they need to go off-site? Or is this going to be replacing a school psychologist who they are currently working with, or in addition to?
This is in addition to, it's been quite a challenge to secure a school psychologist because of the shortages across the nation really, but in the state as well. So we were lucky to find somebody. Some of these services will be virtual to help support some of the needs that we have both at within district and at our non-public schools that we're required to evaluate students at as well.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Fallon.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of an agreement with Maxim Healthcare Staffing Services.
Second. I have a quick question about this. With the nursing support, is this replacing a school nurse position?
It is not. It is a support nurse position to help the high acuity in some of our buildings and to support the treatments for students in multiple buildings.
Okay, do we advertise to find a nursing support that wasn't through an outsourced?
We did.
Okay, and nobody came through on that?
That's correct.
Okay. So is this a 1-year agreement then? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's as needed. If we were
Okay.
to not need the services in January, we can terminate the contract.
Okay.
I would like to just ask a question if I could. The concern about, I understand the shortage for nursing subs, that is a reality. And I want nurses to be able to take a sick day and not feel tremendous guilt and be able to do that by law. But the concern moving forward is that this could possibly set a precedent when we have our veteran nurses who could retire soon. That those positions, targeting positions would be eliminated. And I just want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent with outsourcing nurses because they are in the SEA bargaining.
So this is not a school nurse position. This is a support nurse position. Any nurse that we onboard to support any student with a disability, like in a one-on-one capacity, is a contracted service. So we have multiple nurses that are serving through an agency to support those one-on-one needs for our students. So it is not the intention to replace any certified school nurse. Typically, nurses that come from an agency do not have that certification, which is a specialized certification. Nurse. That's what we look for those clinic nurses. So,
Thank you.
Additional questions from the board? That's Logan.
Weiss,
Aye.
Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the change order, schools in Sycamore Junior High, High School, and EH Green Intermediate.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions? Mrs. Logan.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Balance.
Aye. Motion passes. Other.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Great opening day. First time in the history of Sycamore that I'm aware of that we had all staff together. And from just listening and hearing from staff members that were present, they said it was, they appreciated being all together. You know, a couple of the messages that we took away from the day, all means all. All students and all staff are important to us. And then, you know, our speaker was Teddy Kramer from the Cincinnati Reds, and he did a phenomenal job of setting the tone. And, you know, kind of the message we walked away with was if we all would just be like Teddy, things would be, it'd be a great place to live, so, and work. So, you know, I think that was a great takeaway from the day. And every time I think of Teddy, he always said, he was told basically that he wasn't going to be able to walk, talk, and he always goes, smile, and he points to his face and smiles. So I'll never forget that moment. And thank you to Mr. Long for setting that up. Mr. Long spends a lot of time with Teddy, and you know, whenever he goes to the Reds game, he seeks him out. And I got a picture this weekend from Mr. Long and Teddy. So probably the coolest thing I'll say, the other cool thing about Teddy is he's like a celebrity. So he sent a signed baseball card to Mr. Long. And I thought that was really cool. Like, as a thank you to Mr. Long. So his dad was pleased and sent us an email after the fact, just saying how great of a day it was. And they had been involved in other opening days without that. So kudos to everyone involved. Opening day for students. I just want to mention that we appreciate the board's support of the staggered start. I know that the staff appreciates it. I know the students appreciate it in finding their way. But that it gives everyone a great chance to start those relationships and really have a great start to the school year. So I hear it every year, but I just always want to reinforce it. So just a couple of reminders. Tag Day is this weekend, so you can see people blanketing the area. They are soliciting donations for, it's one of the biggest fundraisers for SBOD. For our boosters, our music boosters, so just be aware of that. And then some good news, some all-state band and orchestra students were identified, and you know, we had 7 students selected as performers, 4 students selected as alternates for the band, and then we had 8 students selected for the orchestra. And so I'm going to read their names just really quickly. Benedict Cecilio, Matthew and Benedict plays viola. Matthew Drasden plays the clarinet. Haley Hahn plays the flute. Christopher Rivera plays the clarinet. Sam Waspy plays the flute. Catherine Nguyen plays the clarinet. Jihei Wu plays the cello. Asher Berg plays the bass. Jacob Jensen plays the horn. These are the alternates. Marion Rose, a bassoon, and Allison Sale plays the flute. And then from the orchestra, Emily Zhu, Benedict Cecilio, must be in both categories for some reason, but James Binkang, Howard Wang, Bailey Housenrower plays the cello, and then Mateo Maley plays the bass. So kudos to those students and congratulations. That's a high honor to be selected for the All-State Band and Orchestra. So
Fantastic.
that's all I have.
Need a motion for the approval of an agreement with the University of Cincinnati.
So moved. Second.
Question?
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Comerford,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Passes. Treasurer's agenda. I need a motion for the approval of the contract with Strategic Solutions Option 2.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Did you have some comments on this?
Sure, yes. So I'm requesting this contract. It is with a company that I actually have worked with for close to a decade, in a former school district. What this will do is it will allow us to move to a more modernized approach, a more paperless system with our workflows, our approval processes. It also will give us access to many electronic forms that already exist that we can modify to what we need here at Sycamore or create new ones. The other thing that I'm excited about is electronic storage of our records, moving away from all these paper records that we have that are taking up space. So it will allow us to utilize electronic storage and retrieval. So we're hoping that this will allow us to be more efficient with our time. And I'm excited about the opportunity for us.
Mrs. Logan, I want to thank you for the 40-minute conversation that we had yesterday when you were explaining this in great detail, and I think moving toward that is a good thing for the district. Thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Long might want to jump in here. Have you looked into this for safety purposes for employees, like records, et cetera, to make sure that our privacy issues are met? And
yeah, I've worked with them before as well, so I don't have any concerns with what they're offering.
okay, thank you.
We also do have, we've got, I'm gonna call it an addendum to any contract where any company that we work with that would have access to any kind of secure records, that they sign that form, that addendum to that contract to make sure, because that security of information is very important. So
I just want to make sure everyone's personal information is completely protected.
yes. Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye. Approval passes. I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Shared Resource Center.
Second. Just a quick question, why does the contract end on March 31st on this one? It's just, it's not a full year, it's not even a full academic year, that's my question.
Right, so what this is, I have been informed while the resignation does not appear on this agenda. I have been notified that our payroll supervisor will be leaving us. So we have one person doing payroll.
Okay.
And so what this will do is it will allow us on an interim basis to provide some support while that opening is there. So we're gonna search for, find a replacement, but during that interim time, this person would fill that spot, as well as provide some training for that new person if needed. So it's for a 6-month period of time. If we need less than that, then it's as needed. But if, I don't even want to go there, but if something would happen and we would need something longer, we could always extend it.
Okay, thank you.
Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the personnel consent.
Second.
Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Comer.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to other Board of Education business. We've had a discussion several meetings months ago on trying to develop a calendar for the Board of Education. So this is just a preliminary discussion with the board, asking everyone's input. If you recall, we did ask each board member to provide topics they would like to see on the calendar. Most of those are on the right-hand side. And then we started to line up where we thought in the calendar year most of these topics would logically fall. And that's what you see on the board calendar, January through December, what the topics are. Again, we're not finalizing anything. This is meant as a preliminary discussion. And then come back to the board with anything, modifications that we saw, any additions that we had, and have further discussions. So you can see, we have 26 meetings. There were a whole lot of topics that were on the mind of board members, to the point where we probably would have had 2 or 3 topics on every single meeting if we put every single topic on every single year. Again, the idea is not to be totally encompassed, that these are the only presentations and that these have to be these. But we tried to take the main ones and put, where we thought they would fall. Keeping in mind, we also have 2 retreats. Retreat in February, we put most of the financial information on, including something different. We did put on that both for the February meetings to include a staffing update, because that would be entering into our hiring season. And then also to begin discussions on school calendars for approvals. And then you can see in March, again, we wanted to get early on the school on the calendar prior to the summer break and starting into the following school year. We put handbooks on there so that we could get any approvals we needed and process handbooks done early. We have our 5-year forecast, which we are required, Mrs. Logan, in May and November. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And then, June, end of the year budgeting and forecasting. September, we put another staffing update on, because this would be after the start of the year. How did we do? Where does our staffing fall versus budget versus, all the requirements that we want them to present to us. Along also with our MTSS. Our October retreat was centered around academics. This would be state report card, math testing, all of the normal academic things. But we also had a discussion amongst us that, the state report card is so important that it should also be presented in an evening meeting for the community as well. Also in October, we put some other, I would say miscellaneous, but very important things around trying to read these all. Preschool, a work session on student data, as well as read the last one after student. Departmental updates, yeah. Again, we're not necessarily, we would always need one from every single department, but just to put, placeholders on the calendars where the board could say, I'd like an update from this department or this department.
Is that using like subject matter, like math, or is that what you mean by department? That
Like
word?
OSS, technology.
Oh, okay.
Curriculum.
District office, okay.
More district offices, yeah. Again, 5-year forecast, we are required to have a child nutrition update. So we put that on the calendar for November. And then strategic plan, we talked about putting twice on the calendar. We have it right now in December, but also probably sometime else, maybe late spring, headed into the summer or something, to have a strategic plan update. And then we did put an enrollment update in December. Kind of what Mrs. Bitter was saying today, to have an update on where we stand with enrollment by building, by district. So those were the ones that, when I met with Mrs. Wagner, Mr. Lewis, and Ashley, we had gone through previous year's agendas to kind of see where things fell. And started to build this calendar out. You can see there's a lot of other topics on the right-hand side, including IDEA, Great Oaks, that we have typically had updates, not necessarily every year. Just really wanted to start with this basic framework, get some input from the board on where we stand with what we have, what other topics we'd like to start to build into the rest of those months.
I have a quick question. Strategic plan, I know that it's the dates that were originally on there will go through 2024. Are we doing community engagement again to update the strategic plan?
The board, I mean, that
I'm
would
just
be,
asking the
that would,
question.
that would be
Yeah.
a discussion of the board.
Okay.
I don't speak for all five of us. I would think that at the end of our strategic plan, yes,
Okay,
we would update our strategic plan and have community input, but that would be a discussion for the entire board
Okay.
to kind of look what's beyond the 3-year plan of our strategic plan, and then what the next steps
What the
on
next
building
steps
that out would be.
okay.
We have I would say we have I don't want to call it a presentation, but we're as a team, we're gonna all participate in a process. I think next meeting that will help kind of inform that discussion and allow us to make that decision together. But I think you're right on the money with we're coming to the end of what it was slotted to be, and it might be time to, there's always going to be work that I think has to be completed on some of the topics. But I do think it may be time to refresh, like there are things that we've completed, so I don't know that they need to stay in there. So we just actually had this same discussion, Dr. Seeger, yesterday in our district level meeting of just where are we and what's the next iteration of it. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
One of the subjects that I know I know that I've made multiple comments or requests for this when we've had these discussions, and I realize it may not have been something that we do on a regular basis, but what I would like to see is more of a presentation on preventative strategies that the school buildings, the district is using on preventing bullying, the actual subject of bullying. I know that we did have a presentation that stated the legal requirements and that we're meeting the legal requirements and that we're kind of checking the boxes, but what I would like to know is the actual, like, what are our schools doing? What are the elementary schools doing? What are each one of them doing? What are the green school doing? Like getting an update from the superintendent, from the district on what preventative strategies are we using that are meeting our policy on this subject, and just to talk with the community, because I know that that's an issue that we as a board are charged with, right? And as a district, it's really important ones. I don't know how it could be exactly presented, and maybe that's something that we would get some guidance from each other on, but that's something that's very, very important that I feel like we need to have on a regular basis, on a yearly basis.
It would fall under our MTSS process in terms of the positive behavior interventions and supports component of MTSS. So we'll be mindful when that comes up to make sure that we're highlighting those components for.
And giving us some ideas of what we are proactively doing on that.
That's the whole premise of PBIS,
Okay,
is that proactive component. So yes, absolutely, we can do that.
that would be great.
Yeah, we kind of left MTSS, because I agree, Mrs. I would like to see that topic as well. We left that intentionally as a bigger bucket item to then chunk it apart and see what topics the board wanted under MTSS presented. It could be cultural things, and there's a lot of different pieces of MTSS, such as bullying and PBIS, that would fall under a presentation like that.
Mr. Ballard, I really appreciate that we're structuring it in this way. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the concept here is this is not going to be everything that's going to be on our agendas these are the annual heavier discussions that we want to make sure we know when they're coming around in the cycle of our meetings just so we know we're going to talk 5-year forecast always in May, and we're going gonna talk staffing always in September. That's the concept behind this.
It is, yes.
Okay. I would, on the things that are on the right, my understanding then is those aren't necessarily blended into the calendar yet, but those are subject for input. I do think, given the growth in our district, that having an annual review of enrollment and schedule time for doing that, so we can have the adequate preparation and research done in advance would be good. That's the kind of thing that,
Which we did in December because we do have an enrollment.
oh, I see it. I thought it was on the right, so it wasn't there. I
No.
apologize. Thank
That
you
might
for
not have been
highlighting.
crossed off.
That's on the.
Can we scroll up a little bit so we can see everything under other?
The thing that I might ask, and this, Mrs. Logan is new with board docs. I was curious why we got this email to us, but it's not embedded into the agenda item on board docs. This would seem like a useful thing that we could like scroll through
Yeah.
during the meeting on our own in board docs. Is there a reason it was not
Totally
attached?
agree. No, I would just say it was an oversight. Excuse me, but no, that is exactly the tool that board docs could be used for, and you could go back and it would always be there too.
Right.
So we will add it.
I just
So for
want to make,
example, go ahead.
Sorry.
Aves, just so you know, was Aves Academy, right?
Yeah.
Just
So
so,
one of the things I forgot to mention is we started, if we can scroll back up, Mr. Long. We started to tie in where it says aids under column B, tie into our strategic plan. How each of these topics would fit into our strategic plan, and those would be the elements of it. One thing that we still have on our list that I believe we are required by law is IDEA discussion. We didn't put it on a particular month because there was board discussion. We typically do it in June. And when we did the discussion this year, there was some board discussion. Could we move that earlier? So that was one of the items that still needs to be migrated into the calendar. I wanted to open up a discussion on when the board wanted to see that, when it's possible to actually have all that information ready to.
I guess my question, because I was the one asking that question, is it possible to break it into two sections? Because I'm pretty sure Spencer mentioned that you don't have all of your information for the next year until June usually, I think that's one of the things you.
The budget allocation
allocation.
is typically not finalized until June.
Okay,
So, but I don't think that would impact the public input
Okay.
on how those dollars are spent.
okay, that was so maybe if we could break that into,
So when you.
I'm like looking at the calendar, we have April or January.
No, I'm just asking,
Yeah.
when would be a good Mrs. Spencer, when is a good time to allow public input into that process, actually, when you start looking at budget?
I think April or May would probably be appropriate.
when we,
Let me put that down for you.
when we do enrollment, which I think is a great idea to have that conversation, can we also get sort of a general update of the class sizes, like how many students are in each class? So that we understand like how full are the rooms, right, in each building, to get a sense of that. That would be helpful.
Yeah, prior to a presentation like that, we'll ask the board for what would you like to see included in that?
Okay.
So that we are getting all the information that the board would like to see in it.
I think one other thing, I think I saw it under other, but I'm sorry, Mr. I feel like most of these are mine. But I do see that we do have gifted education. I'm assuming that Oaks, gifted, OSF, those are not necessarily going to be all talked about at the same time, but those are other issues. I think one other thing that we need to think about as a board is overall communication plan for the district. Just the vehicles that we use to communicate not only with parents and families in our district, but what are we doing for the broader community? And whether that's electronic, paper mail, those kinds of things, just to have kind of an overall plan. I'd like to have that added to the list.
I would agree with
I
Mrs.
agree with
Floyd.
that one. I would agree with that. Thank you.
So, Ms. Von Bright, there you go over there. From a timing standpoint of a communication plan, is it something like summer prior to the start of the school year? Is it a different time of the year that you would think that would be appropriate to bring to the board?
I think summertime's probably a good place to look forward at the year. Of course, there's always stuff that pops through the year, but I think we'd have a general sense of what we're gonna do for the year and be able to share that with you guys.
So if we move that into a June or July meeting, is that okay with the board?
I would suggest we also target a specific month for our SAC presentations. I feel like those are important and the work for the year. And we have traditionally done those in June or July, but either could make sense, but I think it's helpful so that the teams throughout the year know already in advance, you know, not a couple weeks in advance, but at the beginning of the year, this is when, if your presentation is selected, you would be asked to come to speak to the board.
So help me, from a timing standpoint, the presentations are wrapped up by the end of May.
But yes, but the second Monday in May, we're wrapped up. So.
I know we had some issue this year just with summer vacation.
Summer vacations is what it was.
So, you know,
Maybe evening, May meeting, oh, what's in May? Let me see, can I look at the plan again? Mr. Long, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So in May right now, 5-year forecast. April, May, I mean, it's just, in April, we've had a couple, you know, by then, most of the presentations are done, Mr. Lewis can attest to that. And
May would actually not be bad. It used to be that the retirement was part of the meeting and we
Right.
just kept everything away from that meeting, but actually this year, having the retirement before the meeting was a much better effective use of our meeting time, so it was able to celebrate our retirees, but then still have our meeting start at a regular time, so I
I
don't.
hope we do
I
May
don't think
evening
that
and
would-
June
I think
evening.
May evening would probably be the best idea.
Okay.
That way everyone would know, like I'm going in next, that was gonna be one of the gonna say next Monday, we have our first SAC meeting. So we can go in and just say, we're aiming towards having the presentations, evening meetings. May and June. So,
Okay, nope, I'm perfectly fine with that.
And that's obviously not a presentation that the district office team or the building administrators prepare for, but I just want the board to consider and just be thoughtful about, like, as we plan out all these presentations, this is extra work for the administrative team. So like, I just want to be thoughtful. That's why there wasn't one every month. You know, it's a lot, and just know that when you ask a question or you ask us to prepare, it takes them away from their normal work and they spend a lot of time preparing for a presentation for you. So I just want that to be something you consider as we go through all these topics, that you give consideration that it's a lot of time spent on presentations.
And there's obviously business advisory council meetings that fall under updates, regular updates.
Right.
You know, there's SAC regular updates, there's audit updates that would still occur under course business. Mr. Comerford, I don't know, you being the audit liaison for many years, is that something we have to build into the calendar, or is that just a update under other business?
I think it's just an update under other board business. We will typically have the audit at the end of the calendar year cycle. We will have it in December and January updates on the process and how it's going, but I don't think there's no need for, in this case would be Mrs. Logan to provide the updates. I think that's fine, just other board business, and it'll be a couple of different meetings, but not a major presentation.
I have a question for you, Mr. Ballas. You've been working with the Business Advisory Commission. Would the Business Advisory Commission at any point want to do a board presentation so the community and the board can see exactly what's going on? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I do like that idea, Dr. Steger. I don't know that it would be a regular every year.
No, but maybe.
Right, but we could schedule something.
Schedule something.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
I know you guys are working hard meeting it.
No, I'll bring that up at our first business advisory council, just to kind of give an update on with the group on where we stand, what we're doing for the year. I think that would be a great update. But again, I think that,
That would be not an annual thing, but you could squeeze in here or there after something. Yeah.
so I'll work on updating all of our conversation, what we just had, share this out with the board, and then I'd like to bring it back probably at the next morning meeting, because this is more of a work type discussion than a formal business. Let's make sure we've included what our discussion was today. If there's anything else you think of as you look at this a little bit more, we'll update our conversation at the next morning.
So Ballard, just one that, kind of popped in the head is if we're gonna do our culture and climate survey every January, I think we were prepared around April-ish So just another thing to think about is how that fits in. That is something that we're gonna wanna report out on.
Are these, when you talk about that, are those the follow-ups to the different subgroups? Or are you gonna do a general overall again when you do that survey?
What do you mean subgroups, like?
Like students,
Definitely divided up. so it's
teachers,
that,
like,
Yeah,
yeah, would they be, it would be a different survey to follow up on some of the things that seemed like they needed follow-up on, would be my concern that we make sure we do that. With some of the groups, just to get some more information. We're in.
it'll be, we set a baseline last year, so it'll be using those same groups. Go back out and,
Same groups, not the same exact survey.
no, I mean, it'll be, there were a lot more questions, I think, on this baseline setting survey. I think the impact group feels like they can accomplish that goal with less questions, which probably will increase. I mean, I'll say from 2,200 people responding, that's pretty good response rate, so if. But I think if it had less questions, more people would respond, so. Great way to hear from our community.
Okay, so we'll bring a calendar back for next morning meeting. Moving on to item B, other board business scheduling of meetings. So typically in our organizational meeting, we set a start time. As you're all aware, our evening meetings have a to be determined start time with our public session starting at 7. The to be determined part revolves around us meeting in executive session first. And we have been giving prior notice to the community on when executive session would start, but always keeping our public session starting at 7 o'clock. The thought for discussion here is to go ahead for the remainder of this calendar year and set our start time of our evening meetings at 6 o'clock, keeping our public session remaining at 7, but we would meet at 6 to start executive session. And go ahead and update our scheduled meetings for that. Executive session at 6, public session at 7. I know sometimes executive session is typically longer than an hour. And the thought would be if we need to come back into executive session, we would do so after the meeting. But this would allow us to set our start time at 6 o'clock. Did I miss anything in that, Mrs. Logan or Mr. Lewis?
I do not believe so.
The only thing I was gonna mention is, just because we've had these conversations multiple times, you can start your meeting at 6. It does not have to start with executive session.
Nice.
It's just, you can do executive session wherever you see fit in the meeting. So I think that was creating some of our conflict is just, we don't know how long we need for executive session often. So I think being able to give our community a consistent time of this is when we're starting our meeting. I wouldn't want people to think we're starting at 6 and then we're spending an hour in executive session then. So,
But the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, still to remain that the public portion of our meeting would start at 7 o'clock.
Yes. Or the other option, like Chad just brought up, you could move executive session to the end of the meeting and say all executive session topics will be done at the end of the meeting. And then if you do need action items after that, let's say one of the topics during executive session you need to discuss before you take action, you could just do it at the end and start your public portion at 6. So I guess those are the two options. You could start executive session at 6 and say, we're gonna finish by 7 o'clock, no matter what, we're coming out into public session at 7. If we don't finish, then we'll continue discussions at the end of the meeting. That's one option. Or the second option would be public session starts at 6. We're gonna do executive session at the end of the meeting every time and include any action items after.
I would maybe propose a third option,
Okay,
which is we could start the public meeting at 7 o'clock. And that's consistently starting for everyone. And then we just do executive session at the end. It, impacts the board to do and all involved in executive session, but then it's consistent and unassailable from following Ohio Revised Code about establishing a start time.
My concern about that is if we do need to speak about something before we have to take an actual item, we'd have to be out first. That's where I have a concern. Sometimes we.
I agree with Dr. Steger. there's two things. Number one, I agree that it gives us an opportunity to meet an executive session prior to something that could be on the agenda. I also am concerned if we do executive session after the meeting. Just the amount of time that our administrators will be here. I mean, they've come in at 8 o'clock or earlier. They've done the business of the district for the whole day. They're gonna sit through a meeting from 7 until 9:30, and then we're gonna ask them to stay in executive session till 10 or 11. If we don't do some of it beforehand. That's my concern on that part.
Can you just remind us one more time why we can't keep it the way it is, where we decide every week, okay, this time we need an hour and a half, this time we need 2, this one time, because we need to have a set, we have the set board meeting, but not the set executive session.
If we follow the prescribed practice that we're supposed to follow at your organizational meetings, that the time, the place, and the date for all meetings. And we've done 2 of the 3, but that third, the time, we've utilized that notice meeting. And so this would be going back to that prescribed way of doing that, to say, we're gonna set our meetings at this time. Then if we change the time, then we would send the notice to say, hey, we need to change the time of that meeting. But it would keep that established time so that our community would know
So
we're starting.
so you're saying that we can, if we needed 90 minutes, start at 5:30 or I just put up a notice saying executive session will start at 5:30.
Correct. We're changing the time and we notify.
Yeah.
That gets us back
So
to
you
where we were.
start at 6 o'clock. Every meeting is noticed at 6 o'clock.
Right, and then should there's
It should
one
be
day
made
you
any
say we
earlier,
need
we
an
could-
extra hour,
we can-
notice it
we can
earlier.
notice it earlier.
Cause I'm pretty sure administrators don't wanna hang out until midnight.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the thought of just the mental health and wellness of our administrators, because most of them just stay and work through until the meeting. So we're here, so if there is an opportunity to get working earlier and some of the times they can leave earlier, I'm all for that. I do love them to be home with their families and taking care of their loved ones.
I mean, the challenges are I like the idea of if we start at 6 and if there is a time where we feel like we need more time, notice it and go earlier, because first of all, we don't wanna. It's not good when we're not able to cover everything that's needed to be covered, and we're usually very tired at the end of those meetings. Everybody's exhausted and we're not able to really be fresh. So I think I would prefer the version where we say it's at 6, and then should you know that there's extra things that need to be discussed in executive session, then we would do a special meeting on that day. That's fine.
But to be fair to people on the board who have professional obligations, I'd like to give them enough notice, perhaps if we can get it, if we know a week in advance for say. Those of you who have jobs at corporations, at least you'd have time to know that. So that would be my other thing to request, not just, on Friday, maybe Wednesday, I would think. Mr. Comerford?
Yeah, the agenda planning has been happening on Thursdays in advance, and that would be sufficient time, and we should know at the agenda planning how many topics we have for executive session. I'm perfectly fine with the approach that has been put forward for a 6 o'clock start time. I think we're trying to prevent the district from incurring legal action, and so a standard 6 o'clock start time for our evening meeting is fine. I also think it's important to allow our community to attend that the public session does not start until 7 o'clock. And if we finish executive session early, so be it. We'll wait until 7 o'clock to start our public session, I think is an important historical precedent that we've had.
I think I've.
I'm fine with setting the start time at 6 o'clock if we need more time due to public minutes.
So let's go ahead and set the start time for all remaining evening meetings at 6 p.m. And
Vote on that.
Yes.
Okay. So you need someone to motion for that?
Can we do it? Oh,
Yeah. So Mrs. Logan, I just need to ask for a motion to set start time for 6 p.m.
so moved.
Second.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Sorry. Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye, motion passes. Next topic, we want to talk about the streaming of board meetings and virtual participation. You know, started streaming board meetings during COVID. So I think it's been well received by our public, and increased participation. The topic has come up on virtual participation. There are several boards that have moved to participation being in person. Wanted to have a discussion on the thoughts of the board. How we want to move forward with public comment and participation at our meetings.
I think we should keep it, option to be able to come in person and to have it as participants. We have 24 people, 25 people on right now, so showing that people are using it. But I think to keep it accessible for people who might not be able to physically come in, say they might have a disability or they might not be able to drive. I think having the option to be able to speak online is something we should keep open. This seems to rarely happen, obviously, but I think it's a positive way to show the community that we are willing to accept public comment.
I do agree with that. My current circumstance obviously is, attests to that because unexpected accident has me, I was virtual. So, and now I'm lucky that Mrs. Bitter was able to drive me today. So I would appreciate keeping it, that ability, because we maybe once every 5 or 6 meetings have somebody who chimes in the virtual participation, and all the requests go to Mrs. Logan or Mr. Long, right? So I think we kind of have a good gauge of what's gonna happen.
Typically, unless there's somebody that will speak without coming to us, if they put a chat or if they raise a hand or something in there.
Right.
Other than that, we would know ahead of time if they want to speak.
Right. But I think we've kept that consistent with, we need you to let us know ahead of time if you want to speak, and that's been out there signing in or online sending the emails.
Correct. And then obviously during any agenda topic, someone would have the option to participate virtually. But it would be done with a notification, and it would be done after a first and a second. It's not that the public can chime in and discuss what the board is discussing. They can provide input in it.
I think transparency is important. I think one of the benefits of going virtual is that we've been streaming and recording so people can watch board activities either live or after if their schedule would not allow. So I do think we probably need to tighten our protocols on how people sign up for public participation, but I welcome, and we should welcome public participation. I agree with Dr. Steger. There's cases where people, and this is bitter, there's cases when people cannot physically make it to a board meeting. We should provide accessibility to fully participate for those members as well.
If I could just add for staff, we have people at the elementaries who live in the district who would also like to be able to listen and possibly comment. And in the morning meetings, they don't always have that ability if they have to travel to the buildings. And they do have some time in the morning where they don't have students.
So I think I'm hearing that all 5 of us are in agreement on continuing, the live streaming, the recording, and the virtual participation. I do agree, and I can't remember, maybe it was Mr. Comerford that said it, on putting a procedure and protocol so that our community knows when to have input. So make sure they're aware if they want to have a non-agenda topic that they want to participate in, it occurs at the beginning of the meeting. And if they want to participate in an agenda topic, it would occur as the board has made a motion in a second. And they would have to, notify Mr. Long, because obviously conducting a meeting, none of us can see if somebody wants to be participating. So they would have to notify Mr. Long that they would want to have comment on the public portion of the agenda topic. So how about we work, Mr. Long, on developing some of those protocol and procedures Logan and Mr. Lewis, and then bringing those back to the board. That sounds fair? Sounds good? Yeah. Great. Thanks.
I think if it's really clear on the website how to do it, really simple, okay, if you would like, public to participate, this is how you do it. I go online and some people ask me, how do I do this? How do I do that? So I go on there a lot. But I just think making it super simple and easy with a few words, should you want to do this, here's how you do it.
Yeah, I
Really
100% agree, and I think that's it's not clear, and that's why we wanted to bring this
Yeah,
up.
thank you for bringing that
You know,
up.
having a discussion on how to do it, specifically on agenda topics. Because just, interrupting a meeting and speaking is not conducive to the business of the meeting either. So if there's a procedure to notify Mr. Long, so that he can notify the board that someone would like to make a comment on an agenda topic. We always do in the beginning of the meeting, ask if anybody has received public participation. But it's more for agenda topics where I think if there's some.
I think if we could just kind of educate people a little bit on the website, right? We can explain agenda items you can talk about, which are these, things that are clearly on the agenda. And then there are things that are not on the agenda that you may want to talk about, and here's how you do that. Right.
Being
I don't
new to
think-
the district,
Yeah,
I will say that I reached out to Mr. Ballard, like I wasn't clear.
yeah, to me, it's
To
not very
make
clear.
sure, so I agree, like making sure that it is clear, here's how you can participate. And just making sure that everyone understands how they do that.
Okay, we'll bring that back to the board. Last item on other board business is our next meeting. We have a VASA conflict for our superintendent and assistant.
It's actually the October morning meeting.
October.
VASA is the, basically the Ohio Superintendent's group, and their fall conference, which is the only conference they do, is Tuesday, Wednesday of the first week of October. So both Mrs. Wagner and I are signed up to go, so I just need direction from the board. If your expectation is that I get back for that meeting, then I'll need to cut my day short and get back, but I know it's important to collaborate and professionally develop and, go to sessions. So, if I absolutely feel very comfortable with any of my team members sitting in for us, but Brad, how you feel about that?
Can we not have like Brad and Stacy? I mean.
Yeah, I think there's very much, I feel very comfortable. I just wanted to bring it up so that you would understand why both of us are not sitting there.
I think professional development for both you and Mrs. Wagner is very important. And I think this is a great opportunity for you. So I highly would encourage you to attend VASA. I think that the business of the district can be conducted. We can set the agenda to ensure there's nothing on there that would require significant input from the superintendent. It's my opinion, we continue to have the meeting as scheduled. And then we just have your team fill in. So does everyone agree with that?
I agree with that. And then when we get the agenda, if we have questions, we'll reach out to you before or around that, and we'll let you know as well, Mr. Level.
I'm assuming that Mr. Level and Mrs. Spencer will be included in the agenda planning. Absolutely. Excellent.
Mrs. Tompkins.
Hey, Mrs.
Or Ms.
Tompkins.
These growth opportunities getting spread around.
Absolutely.
I'm
Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session for ORC 121.22 G1. Consider the employment and compensation of a public employee, ORC 121.22 G5. To discuss matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations of state or regulation for state statutes, ORC 121.22 G2. Consider the purchase of property for public purposes, ORC 121.22 G3. To confer with an attorney for a public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent court action.
So moved. Great enough.
Second.
And before we take a vote, we obviously per the agenda, we will be coming back out of executive session. We will do our best to be timely, but I do not have any estimate on how long we will be in executive session. But we will be coming back out with some votes. Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Seeger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mr. Comer.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for your patience. For those who waited, thank you. The board is in executive session. Now we will come back and do our public session. I need a motion for the approval of the superintendent contract extension.
So moved.
Second.
For a procedural process, just an explanation. We will now allow the public, anybody who has a comment they would like to make. It'll be limited to 3 minutes per person with a total of 15 minutes. We have more participation than that. The board can make a motion to continue with public participation. After which the board members will be allowed to make a comment. And we will take a vote. So I will turn it over to, I know we have some people in our audience who have requested public participation. So Mrs. Logan, if you could call up who you have.
Yes, Ellen Owens, and they reached out to me prior to the meeting to speak on this topic.
And Ms. Owens, I'm doing the individual timing for 3 minutes, so I'll give you everyone, just kind of a one, just to let you know you've got 1 more minute. I don't want to cut anyone off.
I don't think it-
Okay, thank you. All right, just want to make sure. I don't like to cut people off.
I'm gonna be kind. So,
Can you say your name and your address?
Hi. You need me to stand up. Sure. I know. I know when you used to do this, you came to the microphone, and I haven't done it here. What do I need to?
Just state your name and
I didn't know if I had.
your address if you'd like, or your neighborhood if you don't want to give your address. The microphones are actually
Right
in the
above you.
ceiling.
Yes, modern.
Modern technology.
My name is Ellen Owens. I am a community member. I live in Montgomery at 7330 Thumbelina Lane. Anything else?
Nope.
I'm not giving you my shoe size. I am here today because I read in the minutes that you are giving your superintendent a raise. It's retroactive, I understand. But also that you were going to extend the contract for the superintendent. And I would like, can I ask questions, or is this just I state? No.
Just say him.
Okay. I did some research, and the contract for the superintendent is not up until I think March of 2024. And my question is, my concern is, why extend the contract now? Because you've got an election in November, and you'll have some new board members. I think that it is a better use of your time and the board members to wait for this and not extend the contract at this present time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am going to, when the board speaks, kind of walk through the legal process of reviewing the contract, the time window and all that. So I think that'll answer some of your questions.
It probably will. It will, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Any additional public participation? Yes.
I think I talked with Tracy. I'm Marla Billman, and I'm a retired community member, and I just found out about the extension of the contract of discussions at when I read the agenda yesterday. And I was concerned that it came up so quickly, and I wanted to make sure that you gave the community who support in their taxes the school district and those employees within it, the opportunity to see what Mr. Lewis has done, like what are his goals? I have a lot of questions, and I really have, if I, go down and ask you to answer all these, I think it's gonna take more than 3 minutes. And so I would just like you to allow the community to do some research, ask you guys questions, allow you the opportunity to answer us, provide us with the information, and then come back after you've had taken some due diligence, I think, that you owe the community to see how they feel. And that may be perfectly fine, it may be gold, you know, but just give us the opportunity to see what Mr. Lewis has done, what his goals were, how he performed those goals, if you were satisfied with them, if we're satisfied with them, what your goals are for the future. You know, I mean, I have a million questions. What's his current salary? What are you proposing his salary, which I guess you're gonna answer? You know, why extend it now when you have the contract is, you know, clearly, I don't have any problem with you reviewing his work or anything like that and looking to see whether you want to extend it, but to actually make that decision at this time without community input, without allowing us, you know, like 24 hours to respond to that, I think is a little bit quick. And so just some of my questions. I found the expiration date, I heard that. Was the current contract for 2 years? What's the proposed extension for and why, if it's different? When was the public's first notice? Because my first notice was when I read it in the agenda. So, you know, was there extensive information out there before that this was coming up for discussion? You're having at a time, the meeting is being discussed, this item, at a time when parents aren't really available to come. They're at work and their kids are in the school and they're affected by this. Okay, 1 minute, gotcha. And, you know, retirees are able to come, you know, but not those who, you know, may be really affected by it. I'd like to know Mr. Lewis's goals, and you probably have met him, but I don't even know what they are. I don't know if he's met them and what percent he has met. You know, are there new goals that you're proposing? What, you know, just things like that, things that I think we could write to the school and get some response from. Am I out? Good?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Anyway, I just ask you to do your due diligence and just let the community respond and let us know before you take a vote.
Can she use my time that I? It's an honest question.
I'm sorry, I think I've probably given you what my feeling.
Okay, yeah, we're not stickler to exactly 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had a few, if you had a few more things to say, that would be fine too.
I think that probably. I think that pretty much covers it, but I did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Mr. Long, did you have any?
Not have any of this time.
No? Yep, okay. Please state your name.
My name is Kathy Formel. I live in Montgomery. I'm at 10797 Trailside Lane. Can I just say ditto? But mostly I was just concerned about the timing, like only learning about it yesterday, giving time for the community to input on a decision like this is long reaching. So I was just curious why the short time, why a morning meeting versus a nighttime when maybe more people can come, et cetera. So I guess it's a reiteration of the last speaker, but wanted to say it as well on my behalf.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Okay, I know there are board members who wanted to make some comments.
I'll go first, okay. I want to say that I cannot support the vote that is being proposed today. I feel extending this contract is premature and that the board should have waited and allowed input and feedback from the community. Only 24 hours notice has been given to the public. Hiring a superintendent and extending his contract are one of the key roles of the board. The board has to make sure that it represents the community. When hiring key administrators, we typically do so by seeking a wide range of perspectives in our community. Just did that for our treasurer. We also have an election coming up where the community gets to decide on 2 new board members. So very soon, the public would have an opportunity to make its voices heard and choose the right candidate or candidates. Renewing the contract prematurely takes away the community's involvement. Renewing it prematurely with support on such a short notice ensures that the community does not get involved at all. Additionally, based on the board's last 2 annual evaluations, There is significant room for improvement. It seems inappropriate to extend the contract for a full 5 years. It would tie the hands of the future board, and it would hamper its ability to ensure that improvements are made.
I also have a statement to read. Mr. Lewis is a hardworking superintendent for our school district. However, Mr. Lewis's average evaluation from this Board of Education does not provide support for renewing his contract 6 months prior to the deadline for renewal. During his 2-year tenure as superintendent, Sycamore has experienced declining test scores as well as an exodus of talented administrators and teachers. In addition, the increased incidence of disharmony and fighting between students in our high school has led many students and parents feeling worried about the state of the district and the safety of our students. For these reasons, I am voting no on his contract renewal.
One of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Education is the hiring and evaluation of the superintendent and treasurer. This board, all 5 of us take this responsibility very seriously. The board completed our annual evaluation of Mr. Lewis on June 21st. This comprehensive evaluation included input from all board members, as well as feedback from Mr. Lewis's direct reports, including our building principals and his district office staff. Feedback from his leadership team was very positive and strong. Mr. Lewis was hired in 2021 with a 3-year contract expiring on July 31st, 2024. Per the Ohio Revised Code, the renewal window of a superintendent's contract begins in January of the year prior to the final year of the contract. So the window to renew Mr. Lewis's contract began in January 1st of this year, and it runs until February 28th of next year. The board has until March the 1st of the final year, which will be 2024, to notify the superintendent of an extension of their contract. Sycamore School Board Policy CBC obviously mirrors the Ohio Revised Code. As mentioned, per the Ohio Revised Code and the Sycamore School Board Policy CBC, which just underwent extensive review by this current board, the time frame for renewal of Mr. Lewis's contract is now open. And it is the will of the board to present a renewal of Mr. Lewis's contract for a current vote. Highlights under Mr. Lewis's leadership include successfully leading our district through COVID, leading our district and community over the last 5 years through the design, construction of 2 new schools, the remodel of 2 schools, and overall improvements in the entire district. Our 2022 Ohio State report card earned 5 stars in every category. We were one of only 12 school districts in the state of Ohio to receive such honors, and only one of 3 in Hamilton County. All 5 of our buildings earned 5 stars in achievement and gap closing. We had improvement in our performance index to 104. In 2002, the niche report named 4 of our 4 elementary schools were ranked in the top 11 in the state of Ohio, which consists of over 3,000 elementary schools. Also in 2022, the niche report named Sycamore Schools the 2nd best school district in Cincinnati and the 4th best school district in the state of Ohio, receiving an A+ grade and ranking us in the top 2% of all school districts, both public and private, across America. Under Mr. Lewis's leadership, we secured a 5-year agreement with UC Health to provide medical care for our athletes, along with a substantial contribution to our Always in AIDS campaign. He led the Always in AIDS campaign to raise over $12 million, including a $7 million donation from the Seeger family for our new auditorium. Our preliminary data for the 2023 state report card appears that we will be ranked with 5 stars overall, with ODE expecting to release the final data in mid-September. Mr. Lewis has led an increased hiring of diversity among our administration staff. He has led the implementation and progress on our strategic plan. Last year, he held the first ever Asian Pacific Islander panel discussion group with students. He participates in the Montgomery Diversity Council and is establishing a similar group for our district. Under his leadership, we have expanded preschool and gifted education. In January of 2023, we conducted a culture and climate survey, which included responses from 2,193 teachers, staff, parents, students, and community members. While definitely including areas of improvement, the responses were overwhelmingly positive for our district. Parents by building rated their general perception of our district between 83 and 99% positive. A large response from parents as to why our schools are great was because of leadership. We are proud that our teachers were also ranked very high. Our teachers responded that our school is great because of support from our district office staff, that the district office staff genuinely listens, and that the district office staff is trusted. I think these are some outstanding accomplishments that have occurred in the last 2 years under Mr. Lewis's leadership. Mr. Comerford, or
Yeah, Mr. Ballant, you basically read all of the things that I have listed as well. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but this is not a premature vote. I have served on the board almost 8 years, and this will be probably one of the, I will be very happy to vote for this the next minutes.
Yeah, I did want to address the process and due diligence questions that came to us from the community. As Mr. Ballant said, we did do a very thorough process over months between April and June to prepare for, to align, to do a superintendent evaluation. So this is included, and I'll repeat what he said in some parts, included inputs from the all of the board members, and we collaborated on the rubric that was the evaluation. But it also included direct reports from the district office and from the building leadership. And that process, the other really important factor for me that blended in, because what I was hearing for you is where was the community input voice. And Mr. Ballant mentioned this, but it's really important to understand, we wanted to make sure we have a complete picture from the community on how the district is operating. And we did that formally with an external expert doing a culture and climate survey that we conducted in and got our results in the spring. And there was over 2,100 voices that Mr. Ballant read the input from. So it was students, staff, teachers, administrators, and public all had the opportunity to put input. And so when we did the evaluation, that was an important key input for us to do the evaluation process. And so the voice for me, we had the voice of the community through that independent survey process. Now, one of the things is that the timing for, and I don't think you mentioned this, Mr. Ballant, but the timing for, it's a requirement to do a contract extension that you have a performance evaluation done in advance. And we have done that in a very thorough and complete process. If anyone would like to see that, it's a record that could be requested if you wanted to see the evaluation versus the goals that were, and I think Mr. Ballant outlined them very cohesively. But the element that I would like hone in on is that timing. I would have preferred to come with the contract extension in right after the evaluation. Because if you think about your professional experience, if you have a performance evaluation, typically you get the increase and feedback all at the same time. What we haven't had the opportunity to do since June is have a board meeting where all 5 of us were present for a variety of circumstances. And I really have a lot of empathy for you, Dr. Steger, with both of your needs. But we did a similar contract extension in 2019 for Mr. Forstoffel. It was also in an election year. It also happened in a morning meeting. So the precedent of there's nothing going on here that, there's no innuendo of impropriety from my standpoint. That's all the same elements that existed before. There's precedent has been set for doing it. And I do believe that doing it tied more closely to the evaluation is stronger than waiting to the end of a deadline. I was a non-incumbent running for a school board position in 2019. And I had absolutely no issue at all with the current board making the decision for, in this case, Mr. Forstoffel's contract extension, because I would not have walked in with the information that I would have needed to make a really careful and considered evaluation of the performance of the superintendent. I do believe that the decision from the board to hire and retain and do a contract extension for a superintendent or a treasurer are the most important duties of a board. And there's a lot to take in. I do believe that the performance evaluation and doing that in a thorough, complete way is the necessary first step. And I do believe that the tying of the timetable should be closely linked. So I want to thank Mr. Ballant for highlighting all of the results from the goals that we had established this year. And I also will be supportive of this contract extension.
Yes. We do have one additional request online. Mr. Burke would like to make a comment. Mr. Burke, same 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. And I really wish the order was changed a little bit. I think, Paul, you answered a lot of the questions and concerns I think some of the other people have said. And, you know, I've worked with Chad. I was involved in the fundraising for the, you know, all the buildings. You know, I can't think of a more difficult time to be a superintendent, yet alone a leader of a company in this day and age. You know, he took it on at a very difficult time. He did not have the time or the experience other than the knowledge of the district, the knowledge of the people. And I think he's done an incredible job working with it, as your reviews do say. In my 40 years of working in a business environment, we always did our increases at the same time as the evaluation. And I understand and respect the fact that all 5 board members were not there. And I think this is the first time that you are all in session. I think it's a great opportunity for you to be able to vote on it now. You know, he has 2 kids in the district, so he obviously believes in the district. He's passionate about it. He does work hard. I've seen him interact with other superintendents, and he's not afraid to ask questions and learn more. And as he's growing into this position, it is a very, he's basically brought 2 new school buildings on process. He's kept the high school running during a very difficult time with construction and shortage of labor and stuff like that. So, and things seem to be pretty much on schedule. And for the high school, as well as, bringing Green on board and the junior high. And I know his passion. I've worked with him on many things. I'm involved with him on the business advisory board. And I would like to see the board, acknowledge the fact that he is working hard, and he would like, and, there's no better time for the board to actually, if all the evaluations are positive, to move forward and not have to deal with this at a later time. So thank you. If you have any questions of me, you're more than welcome. But
thank you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to say. So I am the representative for the Great Oaks for Sycamore, and I sit on that board. And Harry Snyder is probably the best I've ever seen, and he definitely has a lot more years of experience than Chad does. But I've also seen him interact with Chad, and I've seen the respect that he has for Chad's ability to want to learn and grow. So I hope he becomes and grows into that position and emulates somebody like Harry Snyder. Thank you.
Logan, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Comerford?
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter?
No.
Dr. Steger?
No.
Mr. Ballant?
Aye. Motion passes. I need a motion for the approval of the settlement agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Logan?
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Comerford?
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter?
Aye.
Dr. Steger?
Aye.
Mr. Ballant?
Aye. Motion passes. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 11:12. Thank you very much.